I've got the answer right here, ladies and gentlemen, to everything that ails you. Now step right up.
One who quacks like a duck about his salves and remedies. The cruel practice of making money on people's worries feared throughout the years as quackery.
I said cure of backache, nervousness,
Welcome, one and all, to another episode of Quackery. Oh, hell yeah, that one had a little life to it. Here with you, as always, I am your host, Doc in the Box, Will. We're still workshopping a name.
I'm John.
Little P.
I'm the guy sitting here working the mics.
On the ones and twos.
The turntable.
Yes, sir. And...
well, this is great.
Is that good? Because I was just drinking something in the meantime because I guess maybe like an alcoholic. I wanted to try another beer. From our last episode, we had some leftover former ones, but now we are working on, from Mash House Brewing Company comes Copperhead Red Ale, the story. At Mash House, we strive to create simple yet captivating beers that bring ultimate happiness to our customers.
God, they're from Fort Bragg.
Our restaurant and brewery is only minutes from Fort Bragg, and we're proud to serve patriots from the armed forces, wowing our customers since 2001. The Mash House team and brewery hope to add you to their satisfied customers list. Red Ale boasts a wonderfully smooth and slightly sweet caramel malt flavor that overwhelms the hop flavors a bit.
All right.
Perfect for all the malt lovers out there. I've never heard the words overwhelms and a bit in the same sentence,
yeah.
But everything is bigger in Texas, even the bullshit.
This is Fayetteville. Now, I wasn't trying to talk bad about Fayetteville, but I spent 5 years there in the military.
Fort Bragg.
Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Oh.
Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Everything's bigger in North Carolina.
Yeah. So shout out. Appreciate all you troops out there.
Hell yeah.
Fort Bragg.
We love our troops.
80 seconds out there.
Yes,
I
sir.
spent 5 years there. And I hated it.
Did you ever go to the...
No, I think this is a new
ever go to the
brewery.
Mash House? It might be new.
No, that's definitely new.
Cool.
Fayetteville is like the third worst place in America to raise a family, I believe.
Top three.
I got my car broken into
Bottom
three times
I guess.
there.
Hey, it's a rule of three. The next thing that happens to you would be something good with the three.
Hopefully not three kids.
Hey, this is our third episode, ladies and gentlemen. So there we go, full circle.
Right.
Today, do you want to fire them off on what our topic is, Johnny boy?
Today we're going back to the basics with snake oil.
Yes.
Yeah, it is a cure-all, but it was actually rattlesnake oil at one point, and then it became the cure-all.
Yeah. So interesting though. So in the 1800s. We started building the Transcontinental Railroad, right?
Yeah.
So what did we do? What does America ever do when they need to build something? We make other people do it. So we got Chinese people, which is, again,
So fucked
we have such a fucked up history to be the greatest country in the world. Anyway, indentured laborers, a.k.a. they were basically Chinese slaves, to build the Transcontinental Railroad, and they brought all their own medicine over.
Yeah.
So some of that was traditional snake oil.
Yeah.
And the weird part was, I didn't know this before this, traditional Chinese snake oil worked.
Did it?
It worked but it was different than what we made, of course. They used it with oil from the Chinese water snake. And the Chinese water snake is actually one of the most things in the world. It's one of the richest sources of omega-3s, which obviously we know about omega-3s. Yeah. And so it was effective in reducing inflammation and all sorts of things. Here's a little thing here. Chinese water snake oil contains 20% EPA, which is one of the three types of omega-3s. Rattlesnakes, only 8.5%, if you actually use it. And then the best kind of fish is only up to 18%. So 20%, that's the high, like one of the highest.
Well, if you buy a pill with omega-3, I mean, how much percents are you getting?
So they do it. So that's fish oil, usually from salmon or from some other kind of fish like that. I don't know the exact number. But they said 18 is typically the highest you can find in EPA.
And you said the snake oil is 20%?
No, Chinese is 20. Yeah, so it's
Water
actually
snake?
better. So of course, the Chinese, rower workers bring over their stuff. They're probably aching back from all swinging those picks all day, and then they share it with the Americans, and they're like, "Holy shit,
So it
this
must have
stuff
really
works."
worked. Yeah.
It worked. Now I'll do a quick background for all you nerds out there who want to know what the 3 kinds of omega-3s are.
Yeah.
There's ALA, which is alpha linoleic acid. That's the most common in your diet. It's in plants, and it's in chia seeds. It's in animal fats and things like that. It's in flax seeds. ALA, linoleic acid. So it's actually the one where your body actually converts that from plants to the other kinds, which are kind of more, which are the other 2 are the ones people take for their diet. The 2 main ones people take for their diet, and actually there's prescriptions that have these, are EPA and DHA. EPA that's one that's like the fish oil. The fish oil comes mainly from seafood, and that's really good for all sorts of things, your skin, your heart, and it helps with the degradation of some of your tissues. It can help with depression. It can help with all sorts of things. And these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. And then there's DHA, which is doxoxylisonic acid. I think that's right.
Do those both come from
Those
the
2
salmon? Like if you
are
have
both.
one salmon fish, do both of those types come from the same salmon fish? They
So DHA is found in seafood, including fatty fish, algae, and some grass-fed animals have it. So that's why they say like grass-fed beef is better. One of the reasons. But DHA is the one they throw in prenatals now because they found that it's actually good in the development of brains and in uterus.
And what about
So it works good for your skin and your eyes and things like that. But
So what about like omega-6? Is that like the same thing or
no, so these are just the omega-3s. We could get into
Okay.
all the different omegas after that, but those are the 3 omega. That's why it's the omega-3. Those different 3.
So
Yes.
so omega-3 does help with rheumatitis, or what is it called, rheumatitis?
Yeah, so it probably Chinese water snake oil in its original form from China.
So if I take omega-3s now, it'd help me with my joints.
A lot of
okay.
people will take it for arthritis. They'll take it for inflammation. They'll take it to make their your skin better. To help preserve your eyes. It can be good for cholesterol. All these different things. It actually does work. Like it's prescription. It's been studied and things like that. But that was within a real source amount of different omega-3s.
Yeah. So I feel like they use rattlesnake oil because rattlesnakes are readily available and Chinese water snakes are not.
So what they said was, this set the stage for entrepreneurial and general flim-flam man Clark Stanley, a.k.a. the Rattlesnake King. He figured, hey, if they can do it with Chinese water snakes, we can use it with our own snakes. And that's all we got in the Wild West was rattlesnakes.
Now, when was that? Because I saw Clark Stanley too, but I think he was in 1900s, right?
So there was a pamphlet about his life that I found this from 1897.
Because I found another guy from 1879.
Ooh, there was a man before Clark Stanley.
Yes, and all those sources I pulled always said Clark Stanley was the first, but this paper was put out in 1879, and this guy, the headline is "How an Old Man of the Mountains is Making Money," and it talks about
It wasn't moonshine.
Yeah, it's not moonshine. He's talking about basically
Not only moonshine.
the second summer he began snake hunting in June, and before frost came, had killed over 300 of the reptiles, whose oil brought him nearly $100, which I looked up. That's about $3,000 in today's.
I do like the what it is today.
Yeah,
money.
Now
$3,000.
this is a huge
It's a lot of
article.
work though for $3,000.
He said last year he made $200 by the sale of the oil, and now and then he sells an unusually large snake skin. So he's actually making money from the skins too, selling the whole thing. And he's selling the rattles.
Got to use every part of the animal.
Yeah.
So basically, Clark Stanley came along and stole his thunder.
I think so.
What it sounds
And he
like.
says, the article says, he states that the oil of black snakes, copperheads, and water racers does not possess any curative powers, and then semicolon, but naively admits that once in 1870 or 1871, quote, when rattlesnakes were scarce, he sold, quote, a heap of black snake oil instead, and no one knowed the difference in quote.
Scarce or scarce?
Scarce.
Well, I don't know. He's a mountain man. He could be
But
scarce and nobody knowed the difference.
Basically, this is snake oil of snake oil because he's selling black snake oil because he didn't have the rattlesnakes available as a cure-all product.
Interesting.
So it's like the snake oil, and he admits it naively, it says.
Fascinating.
And it doesn't say this guy's name. It might be the same guy, but I don't know.
But I know that Clark Stanley is kind of the gold standard of
But I think he just stole it.
And I did see some
He probably
stuff.
read that damn paper and was like, this motherfucker's making a lot of money. He probably did, dude.
Yeah.
He's making what, $2,000 a
He's
month?
smart, man.
The guy was making what?
Well, not
$200 a month, which is
backwoods moron.
two or three
offense.
$2,000 or $3,000 a month. He's making more than people are today.
And Clark Stanley's like, man, this guy ain't even got the balls to put black snake oil in there.
I know.
I'll put anything in there. They thought it was beef oil. That was semen. Gives it its creamy flavor. Now, son, you're not supposed to drink the snake oil, but I like the taste anyways. I drink it a little bit.
Yeah, I saw that
Fake
name.
it till you make it.
I saw that name a lot.
Kind of guys. So the interesting thing was, you may find this interesting, especially. You remember 1893 was a special year in America, right?
Yes.
Chicago World's Expo.
Oh, yeah, with H.H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes was there killing people in his murder hotel.
And
meanwhile, the big World's Fair was going on.
There's a great book about that I read.
Terrific. Devil in the White City.
Yeah, Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. It basically is two books in one. It takes the, I can't remember his name, the architect that constructed the Chicago World Fair, and then H.H. Holmes, the serial murderer that built the crazy murder house hotel.
It is great. Check that book out for sure. But the interesting part is our boy Clark Stanley was there in Chicago
selling that oil.
He was selling his oil. They said so. One source said that Stanley took a live rattlesnake, sliced it open in front of a crowd of onlookers, and threw it in a boiling water, and then he just scooped up the fat and used it to make his Clark Stanley's snake oil that was supposed to be, of course, a cure for everything. Yeah. So it'll say when the fat rose to the top, he skimmed it off and used it on the spot to create Stanley's snake oil, a liniment that was immediately snapped up by the throng that had gathered to watch the spectacle. So a liniment is basically like a rub, like like capsaicin or icy hot or something. You rub it on, and it's going to help with these sort of things. So the interesting part was he was selling a shitload of this stuff. Until 1906 rolls around. 1906, the Pure Food and Drug Act comes out from the FDA, which is basically one of the big dates we had to learn in pharmacy school. This is when you had to prove that what is in your product is in your product. Yeah. Safe. So you don't have to prove that it's effective. Okay. But you just have to, it has to be what's in it is what's in it. So they took some snake oil and they found out that it had no snake oil in it whatsoever. Oh, God. So even if it would have had rattlesnake oil, that had some, some omega-3s, probably not enough to be effective for what he said. But it contained mineral oil, a fatty oil believed to be beef fat, red pepper, and turpentine. So the interesting thing that I thought about was, so it actually may have had some benefit for people because red pepper, that's like capsaicin. We have products with capsaicin in it now, like burnt. You put it on. It's actually a product called capsaicin. They make it with a Z, capsaicin, and it's capsaicin, which is hot pepper in a rub, and it's like a counter irritant, and that actually makes your joints feel better. So the best way I could, I guess, describe a counter irritant is, so let's say if your foot is hurting and you smash your finger with a hammer, you're gonna forget that your foot's hurting. Yeah. So it's like diversion tactics. Diversion. So it's like, okay, we're gonna make your skin hurt a little bit so that your deeper pain gets kind of dulled. Yeah. So actually, Stanley snake oil could have been a little bit effective. And if
you have extreme pain, just rub it in your eyes.
Get somebody to kick you in the noits. I don't know, But so Stanley.
So how much trouble did he get in?
Good question. So after what happened to Stanley, he was fined by the Food and Drug Act $20, which is $429 in today's money. So what did Clark Stanley do? He did not dispute the charges. He paid $20 and he left. So it became, snake oil became a term
He
to
basically
basically mean quackery.
Yeah.
So like there was actually several things. In 1927, John Brown's Body is a poem from Stephen Vincent Benet. He refers to crooked creatures of 1,000 dubious trades, sellers of snake oil, balm, and lucky rings. They're like flim flam, man.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of full of shit. You know, it's like, you're going to try some of this,
Yeah.
essential oils, rub them in your eyes, you'll feel better.
Yeah.
And then 30 years later, a play by Eugene O'Neill referred to snake oil in 1956 in The Iceman Cometh. I've heard of that, but I've never. So today, the term snake oil is used to describe any worthless pseudo-medical remedy promoted as a cure for various illnesses. By extension, a snake oil salesman is a charlatan who sells fraudulent goods.
So the FDA. So do you know when they were formed by any chance?
When it was reformed?
No, was formed. The FDA was it
when
around
the
that
FDA
time? Because I'm wondering
good
if the
question.
snake oil actually caused the FDA to be formed because it was
I know it caused a lot of things. Yeah, let me see.
Because the snake oil, it became a whole enterprise.
Yeah.
They were selling snakes. They were capturing snakes and selling them, for however much a bundle of snakes.
That was their first. The Pure Food and Drug Act was their inaugural in 1906.
For the snake oil.
Basically, was they
Well, that makes
basically
sense.
Clark Stanley invented the FDA. You're welcome.
He seems like a great guy. I'd probably have a beer with that
I'll
guy.
tell you, hell yeah, I would. Clark Stanley seems like a cool ass dude. He's got a cool picture where he's frowning on his snake oil bottle, and he's got like this like cowboy hat that he's like pushed up on the front, like he'd be on an episode of Hee Haw or something like that. But I love how basically he gave rise to this podcast. We ought to let's raise a beer to Clark Stanley.
Yes,
because once upon a time, Clark Stanley and the FDA, they had to be aware of these type of products, snake oil and the like. So they actually started publishing basically a newsletter, extra. Read all about it. It was called Nostrums and Quackery. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
And it was basically a pamphlet like, this is the shit that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or it's not what it says it is.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff. So
that's interesting that you don't have to prove that it works. You just, because I remember watching a Dr. Oz episode where they actually
coming soon to a quackery near you.
He's like the biggest quack of them all.
Oh, we may have to do a multi-parter on him. I think we will.
No, but his team of quacks basically had their own lab, and they looked at a bunch of omega-3s and multivitamins on the Walmart shelves, and literally none of them had what they said they had in them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, you're wasting your money buying that shit.
So that's actually rampant right now in the supplement industry. There've been a lot of studies about it. So they don't have to. They have to have what you say it has in it, but like the amounts don't have to be tested rigorously. The effectiveness, they don't have to do anything to test it. They can just they can just be like, here's, chalk. There's chalk in it. It's good for you. Don't take my word for it because it's a lie.
It's a lie.
It's like what's that shit you used to sell?
Garcinia.
Yeah.
And then they hide behind these proprietary blends.
Oh, they love the proprietary blends. Yeah. Another thing that I learned that they do is, so any products like this that are homeopathic or any of that kind of stuff.
What do you mean homeopathic?
So homeopathic is just like a dilution of something, like a small bit. I think actually homeopathic, and I'll double check here. I think it just means that like it's a theory that a little bit of something bad will prevent it, like it's good. I think it's accepted like a more natural approach to medicine. So it's not necessarily bad. Homeopathic though, it's just like none of it's proven really medically. But yeah, I mean, so a flu shot would be something though that's been tested. So like natural medicines, homeopathic, supplements, things like that. It doesn't mean they don't work. I mean, let's be fair. Like, whey protein is a supplement, but it will work to give your body protein, but you can't necessarily trust that like it's exactly the amount that they say that's in there and shit like that. If they cut it with,
gasoline,
whatever is in there, it has to be safe though.
Snake oil.
That's part of the Pure Food and Drug Act has to be safe and has to have what it's in there. And then there was obviously a lot more since then of different acts that the FDA came out with. But good old Clark.
Yeah. So, it's funny because it seems like from what you told us about the omega-3s, I mean, if we don't have any other creature in America besides rattlesnakes that have that high of omega-3, well, fish too.
Rattlesnakes are pretty low. So Chinese water snakes were 20%. Rattlesnakes were 8%.
And you say how much is
fish are anywhere between 15 to 18.
So you think the omega-3s from fish now were once the snake oil? Because they kind of cure the same thing, right? Rheumatitis.
Yeah. So here's what I think happened. We didn't find out until later that the original snake oil, that Chinese snake oil, was effective, and why. Until we went back and they were like, oh, it's made from Chinese snake oil. And then they got like a Chinese, because they're still selling that shit in China.
Oh, really?
And actually, if you I Googled snake oil, you can buy a 1 gallon jug of snake oil from Walmart. I shit you not.
In China?
No, here.
Here?
But in China, obviously, they're selling all sorts of shit. And I'm sure they have Chinese water snakes that, they sell that kind of stuff. They got all kind of stuff. I feel like if Chinese people, they think if they can powder it, chop it up, and
sell
put it
to
up some
Americans,
orifice. Yeah. No, for themselves. They'll try anything. I think the one, they think it's either going to make them live longer or make their pecker hard for longer.
What?
What other things do people want in life, John?
Yeah, that's true. Live longer and make your pecker hard.
Dr. Jake Dawson's liniment tonic, snake oil, 50 cents. But it cures frostbites, chills, burns, brains, blisters, brains, bruises, sore throat, bites of animals, insects, and reptiles. You remember a few years ago in Mount Pleasant, there was a big headline. There was an escape from the zoo, and it was the Mount Pleasant Viper.
Wait,
no, it was the Mount Pleasant Viper.
I didn't know we had a zoo.
Someone got on, there's the zoo. Maybe it got away from the aquarium. But anyway, there was someone who went on the radio and they said, oh my God, it's the Mount Pleasant Viper. Everybody look out. It's the Viper. And just did this Mount Pleasant Viper voice. Look out, I'm going to bite you. I'm the Mount Pleasant Viper. That's what's funny is probably the traditional Chinese water snake oil, if they would have been drinking it, it would have been, probably people drink it.
Yeah.
People are crazy with this kind of shit. It's the whole theory that if a little bit is good, then a lot must be better. Yeah. It's you'll get people who are inject things like that. Be like, well, if it works a little bit for my knee, then I'll inject it into my penis. Whoa. Let's just put on the brakes here.
I was thinking the same thing about the cupping. I was like, it's making my skin
Can you
bigger.
imagine how big it would make my penis?
I wanted to ask that question.
Balls.
Could I put this on my penis and pump it up right now?